So hello and welcome back to yet another video. Today I'm just going to be showing you all the different ways that I've been learning Japanese by myself in terms of like resources and materials mainly, and I'll also mention like a bunch of other resources that I've come across but I haven't necessarily used as much, just in case you find it helpful. So most of these resources are free. They don't include textbooks, they don't include classes or tutors or anything like that so far. So I already know that this is going to be such a long video just because I kind of just want to give like decent reviews about the tools that I've been using. So I'm going to be leaving timestamps below of just like kind of different sections just so you can use it as an overview, or if you want to skim through it faster, just like watch it on like 1.5 to 2 point speed, which is what I do for a lot of videos. So as a bit of background, I started last year probably around September, with my motivation being that I was planning on going on a working holiday around September this year, but that's obviously been postponed for a while. But because of that, I've kind of just been focusing more on like listening and speaking rather than like reading and writing. So a lot of my resources will probably tend to cater to those a little bit more. And from learning from the resources that I've been using, I'm probably at about a N4 level of understanding of like just grammar and vocabulary mainly. Like I haven't been following the JLPT levels strictly, kind of just like more so using it as a guide of like what I am more expected to know at like a base level, which I feel like isn't necessarily a bad idea. Even if you're not planning on taking a test either, perhaps just using it as a bit of a guideline. Especially since I'm not using like any textbooks and stuff like that, like I'm kind of just like winging it. Kind of just gives a bit more confidence in what I'm learning. Also, I feel like it's kind of obvious, but like nothing in this video is like sponsored in any way. Like it's literally just like what I had come across and used myself. But anyway, let's just get into it. So although I had dabbled a little bit beforehand in learning Japanese, when I started doing it like more seriously, I started with learning the Hiragana and katakana, and I would definitely suggest doing so too. It's because it's really not that hard or time consuming, and it will help you a lot with like just pronunciation, help you with some resources which may use more Hiragana, and it also just kind of like helps to give motivation. So the main way that I had learned these was through the apps Katakana Pro and Hiragana Pro. They are both just free like kind of flashcardy apps, and I found that it just made it really easy to be introduced to like the new characters, and it's just quick and it's just seamless, I guess. And the apps look pretty nice compared to a lot of other apps. And then after a while of playing around with these apps, I started to try and write them down either on like a scrap piece of paper or like a whiteboard or something like that. Or there are other apps which can help you with like writing, especially when it comes to like stroke order, such as the app called Write It, I think. And a couple other apps that I did use occasionally was Just Kana and Kana Town, which are both just kind of good for extra reviews and like different ways of reviewing them with like quizzes or stuff like that. But just find whatever works best for you. So next up, I'll be talking about the app Lingo Deer. This is probably the most structured thing that I've used since I've started learning. When I joined, it was still free, but now I think you have to pay for a subscription for it. I'm currently subscribed to it for a year for $60, which was sale price, but I'm not sure how often they do sales and stuff like that, or whether it's changed. And I'm not too sure how much of it you can actually get free now anymore, but since I found the first course so useful, and since it was my main source of learning, and it really is what kept me motivated to keep going, I kind of just thought it would be worth it, and I definitely don't regret it. Even though it does cost money, it's still like, if you need something that does just kind of like help you through it a bit more in the course to follow, it definitely is worth it, I think. They are constantly adding new content, such as like this kanji course, or like travel phrases, or like just conversation and listening and practicing speaking and stuff like that. But the one downside that I did find with this app was that the second Japanese course, I kind of felt as though some of the explanations were a bit too brief, which would require me to look up that grammar point from another source to understand it properly. Like they do have a little like information page at the start of each module, which does help quite a bit, but sometimes even that is a little bit too brief. But I still think that it's definitely worth it just as like a really good base for what to learn, especially when you are starting from scratch, because it just makes the whole journey like less daunting, because you kind of just gotta like work through each module at a time. Like it has like clear steps, whereas if you're like completely by yourself, it's kind of just like into like open field of like everything. Or like it makes it easier to like plan out your study. So like I might have planned to do 1 or 2 modules a week, and it's also just a really good review tool, and that's mainly what I use it for now. And you can access it from like anywhere. You don't have to like sit down with a book or anything, you can just like do it on the go. And they have a pretty good review section. Like I particularly like when you click up the thing at the top, they have like really good listening practice, or the 5-minute quiz is really good as well if you're just looking for like something quick. Or I do really like using the grammar section, where you can kind of just like focus on the modules that you had just learned. Like for a couple weeks after learning one module, I might do like 2 or 3 of these at a time after I learn them, or now I just do like an overall shuffle of them. And also at the end of each module, they do have like a little story section where you can like listen to a dialogue and then like shadow it by like recording yourself to get feedback. And they also have plenty of options for like text types. So for the majority, I use the Japanese and Hiragana, which is just like kanji with like furigana above the top. But now that I've decided to focus a little bit more on reading, I've just got it on Japanese to like force me to like know the kanji a bit better. But I did like having that option. Or like you can do romanji if you want to, but I would suggest not doing that. So at some point during using the Lingo Deer, I started using drops to help help me pick up some more vocabulary. With this app you get a 5-minute free every day. I just really enjoyed the aesthetics of the app as well. Like it just flows so smoothly and it's just really easy to like get through every day. And there's tons of like modules or like categories of vocabulary that you can choose from. And I like that they don't force you to like learn every word. You can like choose like what's relevant to you and like what you do want to learn and what you don't want to learn. And overall I think it is a really good place for beginners to start off with. And personally I stopped using this at a point just because I'd had enough of it, I guess, and I started using Anki instead. So you might have heard of Anki by now because a lot of people do recommend it, but if you haven't, it's basically just like a spaced repetition flashcard program. So I started using Anki by downloading a 2000 word core deck. I'll leave the link to the one that I used below. And I also really like this pack in that it has different external links for each word, because sometimes I'd like to click on the little Jisho link to get more info on the words or like just example sentences or like to see what level it actually is, because the pack does have vocabulary from like all the levels, like from N1 to N5. And I found that this pack does have most of the vocabulary for N4 and N5 in it. So you kind of like get the basis of what you need to know as well as other common words, which is why I chose to use it. And I studied this every day. It's kind of motivating in the fact that like if you miss a day, all of the reviews just like build up onto the next day rather than just like sitting there and it kind of just like skips a day for you, which can be annoying at sometimes, but it definitely is what kept me going back to do it every day, which is like a really good thing to help you like actually pick it up properly. And I honestly don't think I would have kept up with it so diligently otherwise. Personally, I actually don't use it 100% right, like how I think it's designed to be used. Like even if I get a word wrong, like I don't know at all, I might still just like click hard instead of like try again, because otherwise I just find it too demotivating or just like annoying. And if I don't know the word, I don't let it get anywhere past a week of the spacing, because I find that a lot of the time I do actually pick it up during that week of learning it, even if I don't like see it every day. And sometimes if the word is like a lot more irrelevant, I might let it go for a bit longer, like I'll prioritize the other ones first. And I'd also changed the new card amount from anywhere from like 5 to 20 words a day, just depending on like how much I'm struggling with like the other vocabulary that I already have going on. Or another thing that I would do is that I'd click to like flip the card before even looking at it and like listen to it first, because since I was focusing more on listening rather than reading, and I find that I'm actually quite a visual learner, so like often I might like see it and I'll recognize the kanji and I'll know what the word is, but then if I hear it without like being able to read it, I have no idea what it is. Basically my point is that like you don't always have to use things like 100% how they're supposed to. You kind of just like tweaking little things here and there to like make it work the best for you, because I know that I definitely wouldn't have kept with it if I did it exactly how I thought that it was meant to be done. So some people are quite against using set lists and say that it's better to create your own cards from whatever other resources that you are using, but I have actually found this very useful so far. And at first I had no idea how to use Anki, so picking up a deck was definitely a good starting point, because making your cards can take up a lot of time, which is why some people don't like it, but the activity of making the cards can definitely help a lot in the learning process. But this just personally isn't something that I've done yet. And so currently in conjunction with this 2000 words core deck, I've actually started on this other 5000 word core deck, which I'll also leave below. This one tends to be focused more so on like sentences rather than like a particular word, and I found myself using it a lot more for like reading practice and immersion, because they have some pretty good sentences in there as well, which are just at the right level where like I can recognize most of the sentence except for like maybe a word or two within it. So this one I will actually try and read the whole sentence out aloud before I click on it to make me get used to the kanji reading, and then after I play the card I will say it again and trying to imitate the pitch accent that she says within it. So and another alternative to using Anki is Quizlet. I haven't personally used this too much. I mainly use it when I was trying to learn all the vocabulary for the N4 and N5 levels. I do find it is really good for when you are trying to make cards, because it can sometimes like auto fill in the meanings of the cards. Like you'll write in like the word and it can come up with the meanings for you, and it also is just a lot nicer to look at than what Anki is. I think Anki you can get on your phone, but you might have to pay for it. I think I might be wrong, but Quizlet is just like free. They do have premium versions as well, but the free one is fine, and it's just a lot easier to like carry around with you, but it's definitely a lot more simple than what Anki is. Like Anki is good because you can put like sentences in it, but Quizlet is mainly just like basic words. So other than that, soon I think I might actually start doing like more focused vocabulary on like my own personal interests and stuff like that now that I have learnt the base. So now I don't really know where to fit this in the video, but I kind of just wanted to bring up Duolingo quickly. I use this app pretty rarely, and I only really use it occasionally if I just feel like using it as like a review tool more than a learning tool, because it just doesn't necessarily teach very well. It kind of just like throws sentences at you and you can like click on the words to see their meaning, but it's just not that good in my opinion for like learning at least. But one thing I do really like about Duolingo is that there is a little bit more flexibility on like the answers that you give back to them, whereas like Lingo Deer you have to do it in like the exact order that they want you to put it in. And also like that they just have a few different like topics than what some other resources do as well. So it's definitely a good app to have on your phone, but just definitely don't rely on it as your only source. Another app that I quickly just want to like kind of shout out was bunpo. Bunpo. I didn't use it too much, but it does seem kind of cute. And last time I checked, they had about like half of the content for like each of the different JLPT levels. So you can probably get a good idea of the app before you like buy the premium version of it. But it is a lot more simple than what Lingo Deer is as well. Okay, so now let's get on to other websites that are used mainly to learn other grammar. So firstly, I'll be talking about the website JLPT Sensei. So this site was what I used to learn or add to the basis of most of my N4 grammar on top of what was already taught in Lingo Deer. I kind of just like worked my way through the grammar list that he has on there. I just jotted down like some of the notes and like example sentences in a notebook that I had. The explanations can still be a little bit brief at times, but he does give decent example sentences which are relevant and like easy enough to understand. And I find that it's formatted a lot nicer than what a lot of other websites that I come across are. And so the layout and the simplicity of it is honestly almost what made me keep coming back to it, because it's just really easy to work through. So after I'd worked through all of the grammar list for the N4 and the N5 levels on there, as well as a little bit along the way, but I also really liked Maggie Sensei's site. This also covers a lot of really good points on the grammar, but it feels like it has just like a lot more depth to the understanding and explanations that she gives. I definitely recommend looking on here as clarifications for some points, or she also does give a lot of other different example sentences. Like some other sites you can tell that they just like pick from each other's sites, but she has like her own sentences, and she often throws in like colloquial ways of saying it, or like covers a few like similar points at the same time kind of thing, to like, it just really helps to clear up a lot of things. And there's also a lot of other content on her page that I have yet to look through of just like other expressions and stuff like that. And also at the end of each post there's like a comment section, and I find that it can be really helpful to kind of like look through there to see what other people have like posted about and what her responses are to that. So some other good websites that I do want to mention is Tycoon's Guides. I think that's how you say his name. He has like a full-on like almost like book-worthy pages of like guides that you can just get on the internet, and I wish I saw this sooner because I feel like it would have really helped me through a lot of things. And there's also other just JLPT websites such as Japanese Test For You and LearnJapaneseDaily.com. And then there's also Japanese Pod 101, which just has a bunch of different lessons and features and other videos. I kind of wish I used this a little bit more, but I just didn't necessarily get around to that either. So next up I'll be talking about some YouTube channels good for grammar lessons. First I want to mention the channel Miku Real Japanese. She has tons of good videos based on particular grammar points or some interviews in Japanese which are really good for listening practice. And her lessons are just very well structured with like examples and then explanations and then like practice questions. And she speaks really clearly, and just overall it's just really easy to understand and it's fun to watch. So this next channel is actually the most recent addition that I've had to my learning course, I guess. And it's the channel called Organic Japanese with Kua Dolly. Her channel is so underrated, and this is something which like I've said it quite a few times, but like I just really wish I came across this a lot sooner. Like even though now I'm at a rough like N4 level of understanding, I still just like sorted from like oldest to newest and just like binge watch through her channel, especially like all of like the starting lessons that she has on like double speed, because she just explains everything in such a good logical way, like in the way that Japanese actually is, instead of like morphing it into something that like is English but like Japanese kind of thing, which is what a lot of like textbooks do, just to, like try and make it easy to understand. So even if you think you know the content of the video, I'd suggest just like playing through it, like even just like on double speed, just to like see the different ways that she explains things, or even just like using it as like a really good like refresher or like top up on what you have already learned. Like I feel like so much of the information that was just like kind of floating around has just like really solidified into my brain now after watching through all of her videos again. So yeah, I definitely highly recommend checking it out. So a few other channels that I did quickly want to mention is Japanese Pod 101. They have a good YouTube channel as well. Koto Academy, Japanese Amu with Misa, Learn Japanese, Yuko Sensei, Comical Reina, Sanbonjuku, as well as just like a lot of other JLPT channels that you can find if you like search up, which have just like good examples of like questions from JLPT or like vocabulary around it. Yeah, there's tons of stuff out there, but these are just a few to get you started. So next up I'll talk about a few things that I use as listening practice. So there is tons of ways to do this, from like music to videos to podcasts. It's just important to find what works best for you, what interests you the most. So first up I'm going to talk about podcasts, because that's probably what I've used the most along the way. Personally, I listen to all of mine through Spotify, but it kind of just depends on the particular like podcast itself of like where it will stream to. A lot of them you could probably get from like, I don't know if Apple Music does podcasts, I have no idea. But all of them might have like their own like websites and stuff that you can look at them through as well. So by far my favorite podcast would probably have to be Learn Japanese Pod. They have a ton of great lessons, which just like include a main dialogue, which they just like break down and explain the different parts to it. Some free speech, which is good for listening practice. And then a random phrase or word within each main podcast. And then they also include a version of each podcast with just the dialogues in it to use as practice, as well as some like Fun Friday podcasts where they just like talk about like anything got to do with like Japan or the culture or just anything. It's all in English, but it's still like pretty interesting to pick up on like the cultural notes of it. And they actually just recently brought out their own app which has all the podcasts on there as well as the PDFs to go along with each podcast. So the next podcast is called Let's Talk in Japanese. I really like this podcast because it's split into the different JLPT levels. So even if you are at a low level, there's like something that you can listen to and understand most of. And he covers quite a few different topics which are quite interesting to listen to, and even some like lessons within the podcast as well. And he's really easy to understand, although sometimes I do like to put it on like 0.8 speed just so I can like my brain has time to process all of what he's saying. So another one that I like to listen to sometimes is called Let's Learn Japanese from Small Talk. They cover quite a few interesting topics, even though I don't generally know what they're actually talking about. But it's still interesting to listen to, and I can pick up like some parts, and they just have a good flow between the two of them. And sometimes I do speak a little bit of English along the way to like help you with understanding the topic a little bit more. Or now they include a vocabulary list at the end of each podcast. So these are the 3 main podcasts that I listen to, but there are also tons of others such as Amasugi, JLPT Stories, Learn Japanese with Noriko. Miku did one that was called Real Japanese Conversation, but sadly it only has 4 episodes or something. But you could also just like search up Japanese on the podcast and like a whole bunch of like different ones will come up. So next up I'm going to be talking about shows. So obviously a lot of people turn to anime because there is just so much variety out there, but it is important to also recognize that it's not always that realistic, both in either like the voices or phrases that they use. It really depends on the genre. Like sometimes I like to watch more like slice of life animes just because it is a tiny bit more realistic at least. So personally so far I've just been watching them with English subtitles, but it's just like paying really close attention. Like I would like only glance very quickly at the subtitle and like spend most of the time listening to what they actually say, because it is really important not to just watch the anime mindlessly and like not even listen to what they're saying, because you're probably not going to pick it up just from like subconsciously listening to it. A lot of people do recommend working through each episode like very slowly, like breaking down like each subtitle, which is something that I do plan on doing next. And I've heard that there are good websites that help a lot with this, such as Animelon, but apparently it's really good because you can just like hover your mouse over the word and they'll come up with like explanations about it. But I haven't looked at that yet because it's actually like down at the moment, so don't count me on it. It does feel a little bit dodgy, but it's apparently legal, so I don't know. I've heard other people recommend it, so it can't be that bad. And then another show that I really like to watch is Terrace House, which is available on Netflix. It's just really good for like listening to like real like spoken colloquial Japanese, both from like formal and casual speech, and there's tons of episodes. At first I was a little bit skeptical because it is quite different to what I would normally watch in a show, but I did get around it and I found it really interesting. So I also plan on breaking down these subtitles too very soon to like pick out like different particular like phrases or way that people like bring up different topics or like respond to questions and stuff like that. I feel like that'd be a really good source to be able to pick up those kind of things. So along the line of videos, I'd like to next talk about some more YouTube channels, but that are more so based around like listening rather than like actual like lessons. So I actually struggled quite a bit to find any that I actually really enjoyed and wasn't in just like the kind of like comical style that a lot of like Japanese TV shows generally are, if that makes any sense. Like I kind of just wanted to like watch people just like calmly like vlogging and stuff like that. So the 2 ones that I have found that I do actually quite enjoy watching are Haruka Kuriyama and Aoino. I'm probably pronouncing them wrong. Don't hate me. And there are a few others that I do come across occasionally, like after watching these videos, that they might have a couple of videos that I might want to watch, but generally like I find these channels are best for like they constantly have videos that I don't mind watching. So Dogen is another channel which is really good. He's an American that does skits in Japanese, and he also has a Patreon class which focuses mainly on pitch accent, and he does have a few of those videos on his YouTube as well, and I definitely recommend having a look at his channel as well. And another channel that I kind of just like want to like slide in here is called Grandma's Recipes. There's not too many videos on here, but it's just such a wholesome channel. You kind of just get a glimpse into like all these various abachans from around Japan and just like see them like cook a dish and like talk about their life, and it's just so sweet. And like I don't know, I recommend checking it out. It's kind of a little bit random, but it is just like it's really cute. And then there are plenty of channels that does videos based on Japan but like spoken in English, which is still really good to watch for like the cultural reasons as well. But I'd be here all day if I mentioned like all of them. But one that I did want to point out was Loretta's channel called Kimushi-chan, because she sometimes posts videos which are spoken in Japanese, or she will make videos based around like Japanese learning, which I find quite interesting. So on YouTube you can also find like other Japanese shows. A good one is Nihonjin no Shirenai Nihongo. I feel like I'm pronouncing it right, but I still feel very self-conscious about it because I've never actually like, yeah. But anyway, they're all pretty cheesy and a little bit cringe and outdated, but they're still pretty good to listen to. So now this is kind of a little bit of a tangent. I didn't really know where to fit this in either. And although I don't really use TikTok that much, I know that there are quite a few good accounts on there that do either like Japanese lessons or just like other videos in Japanese. My favorite would have to be this girl. I actually don't know what her account name is called. I'll put it up on the screen when I find it. But she does this lot of like skits with like different like slang or just like loan words that Japanese use that are kind of like, they're English but they use them in like kind of like a weird way. So they're both like entertaining and it's also just like really good to listen, and also like if you hear those terms you know what they mean by them. Loretta also did a video on her channel where she mentioned a lot of other Japanese channels as well. If you want to go check that out, I'll leave the link to that video below as well. And Instagram also does have quite a few accounts on there which do Japanese lessons if you want to check that out as well. So another source that I use sometimes too are just JLPT practice questions online in like the listening section, such as like on Japanese Test For You, they have quite a few good ones. And finally we have news sources. So my go-to is probably the Easy Japanese News app, but there's plenty of other sources as well. Naturally these aren't quite as interesting, but they still can be good to listen to sometimes as well. Okay, so kanji. As I mentioned earlier, I haven't really focused too much on learning kanji specifically, but I did really want to shout out this app because I do plan on actually using it very soon. It's $15 for a lifetime purchase to like unlock all the apps, but they do have the first level for free, so you can get a really good idea of whether the app will work well for you before you purchase it. But it has like lots of info on like stroke order, writing practice, meanings, main readings, as well as like less common ones, and examples of where the kanji is used, and just like various ways that you can test yourself. I feel like this would be a really easy way to be able to like incorporate it into your routine as well. Or another resource that I hear is apparently really good is a book called Remembering the Kanji. But personally this isn't necessarily something that I plan on using, just because I don't necessarily want to use a book to learn kanji. I kind of just like want to pick it up a bit along the way. So a great way to actually practice your Japanese is through buddy apps such as HelloTalk and Tangent. I personally haven't actually used these yet, mainly because I've been too shy to like talk to people on them, but I have heard a lot of really good things about it. Like apparently it's just a really good place to like go and find people for like language exchange, or like I have used HelloTalk a little bit. They have like a kind of like a feed page where like people can like post things and you can like correct that person's whatever language, if that makes sense. But I do plan on using these more soon because I need to practice talking to people. I also just wanted to like suggest looking in the library near you to see what resources they have as well. Mine didn't have proper textbooks or anything like that, but they had like a bunch of other just like phrase books or like CDs, or like they did have the Living Languages like Japanese kit, which I did use for a while, which was really good. Like the last couple of months I found that they did have a like free online course that you could also do. So maybe check out your local library to see if they have any resources like that. Alright, so we are finally at the end of this very long and extensive video. My throat is getting so dry. I really hope I didn't miss anything out. If you made it through this far, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you found some good resources out of it, or just like different ideas of ways that you could learn Japanese, of ways that you can incorporate it into your day. But yeah, I guess I'll just see you guys in the next video. Bye!